Good evening, I'm Mark Seal and welcome to Final Score. It's our sports show where we'll talk about the headlines and the newsmakers of the week. Tonight, a Domino's team from Barbados finished mid-table at the recent World Championships in Colombia. What are the plans for winning it all next year in Puerto Rico? And Philip Alves is back home after an aborted attempt by his team of adventurers to cross the sea lane between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. What's the plan for resuming the mission? Well, of course, you, our viewers, can make your contributions and ask your questions via social media. WhatsApp is 228-5562, while Facebook, we have CBC Barbados or cbcnews.bb. So let's get to it. Barbados had marginal success at the Mundo World Domino Championships in Colombia. Eric Lewis placed 15th out of over 480 players in the singles, while Pete Gilles and Rodney Innes were 24th in the pairs. One major success was Innes himself being elevated to the second vice presidency of the board of directors of the World Dominoes Federation. With us tonight is that second vice president himself, Innes, and world 15th ranked player, Eric Lewis. Good evening, gentlemen. First thing, Rodney, let's make it clear that the team was not the national team as selected by the National Association.
Hey, good night, Mark. I'm pleased to be here. Yes, we just want to verify that the team that went to Colombia was in fact Team Barbados and not necessarily the Barbados national team. Similar but slightly different. And yes, we did go in our numbers, and we did a good job in being very good ambassadors to Barbados and for the sport of dominoes, which we will forever be going forward together and to promote the sport collectively with all those in Barbados and hopefully those in the region, the English-speaking Caribbean region as well.
So, Rodney, give us an assessment of Barbados' performance in the various categories at the Worlds in Colombia.
Well, Mark, there were three categories in Mundo. This is the Spanish League. Like you rightfully said, we had over almost 500 players taking part in this tournament. And there's three categories of play. It's the individual, it's the pairs, and so what's known as the four-man team. 4 persons from a particular country come together to make what's called a four-man team. So in the event where Barbados had 36 persons, we had 9 four-man teams in that. And we performed credibly. As you mentioned earlier, we were happy to have someone like Eric Lewis. He was our MVP. He was the best performer for Team Barbados in Colombia. He placed 15th out of almost 500 players. It's very commendable, seeing that they're playing a different style of domino than we normally play here in Barbados. And his team as well, coincidentally, the Bajan Tridents, that's the name of that team. They placed 19th out of 100, almost 200, 130 odd four-man teams. So we did really well. We were very successful in our estimation. The pairs we did not do as well as we hoped to, but going forward next year, that's the plan, and with consistent practice throughout this year, we intend to do very, very well in Puerto Rico next year.
Well, Eric, let's bring you in here. You were the top player. What was the tournament like for you?
It is a very intense tournament. I had my first dip in the waters last year when I went to the Dominican Republic with the team from Barbados, contingent from Barbados. In the individuals last year, I taken place around 280 something out of close to 500 players, But that was my first time, and it was indeed a learning experience at that time last year. So this year I had more time to practice the game, because you must appreciate it's a different form of dominoes to what we play here in Barbados. A complete different form. It is dominoes, but it is a very intensive and strategic kind of game. So it calls for a lot of practice because it is not just winning a game, but you have to accumulate points. You win the match when you accumulate 200 points. It is kind of like a reverse 50s and partners. And, you're playing against people from, this year, you can have people from 15 different countries, as far as Mozambique, you have Spain, Dominican Republic, Chile, Cuba, Panama, a whole host of the Spanish Latin countries. Um, and even though you are playing as an individual, you are still playing with a partner. And that partner is someone 99% of the time is a person that you have never seen in your life before. So even as good as you can play or you're confident about your skills, you still have to appreciate that there's some person in front of you playing. And if that person is not as skillful as you, or if that person is a poor player, then you will not be as successful as you would hope to be. Luckily or fortunate for me, I was able to play in front of some very, very good players. Even in my final match, I played with a lady from Venezuela, and her skill level was very good. So that kind of like catapulted me into the 15th position. I placed 15th, she placed 16th. Ironically, I won 9 out of 11 games, and even though I placed 15th, the person who won 11, all 11 of their matches. Second position won 10 and lost 1. I won 9 and lost 2. But there were about another 14, 15 people who tied for that third position. And just how we do in cricket, these ties are separated by net run rate. There's this net score that they use, which is the points that you would have accumulated and the points that person would have accumulated against you. That's kind of like subtraction and you get like the net score. My net score was not exceedingly brilliant. It was good enough to get me in the 15th position, but when you consider that I tied for third position and then fell down the ladder, it means that that's something that I will have to work on going forward.
Okay, well, and Rodney, we are bidding for the 2025 championships. Will we be ready to host it and will we win it?
Well, Mark, let me. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but we have achieved that almost. We're about 98% achievement on that. We just waited for the formal contract to be signed off by the Sports Council and Minister of Sport. And I can say then, be in a position to say to the whole world that the 2025 championships will be held in Bridgetown, Barbados. And we're eagerly looking forward to that. And so are members of the Spanish-speaking countries. All those players that we've seen over the years, they are thirsty, they're very anxious to come to Barbados. They've heard of Barbados, they've heard of the paradise, and they want to come down here and see how good we are in the sport of dominoes. And not only that, they want to enjoy with their friends and family the opportunity to come down here and have a bit of looking after Barbados, looking around, good tourists, and yet conquering our domino world here in the Caribbean. So we're looking forward to that. That's one of the highlights of it.
Brilliant.
And,
Okay, well,
we appreciate that.
let's take a little break here. Still to come, we have questions from our viewers and followers on social media. Back in a moment. Welcome back. We're with Domino's player and administrator Rodney Innes along with player Eric Lewis. Let's now go to the fast round, our social media pages for some questions. And let's look at the very first question. I have here, did the best players in the island represent Barbados at the World Championships? I don't know if Rodney, you want to take that one?
I think
Not
that
here, Rodney.
we know. Pardon me?
Yeah. Guys, can hear you now.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, right. Certainly, the persons who play in our association here, the best renowned players who play here, did not take part um, on this occasion. They took part last year and some years before. However, we had some very good players as well there. Apart from Eric, we had good players, Carlos, Hinkson. We have the Courtney Eswick. We had a number of good players who have a good reputation and good results here in Barbados. What we are trying to do is to get all our better players to come together and be able to fight for Barbados going forward. Because we took a team of 36 players, but Mark, you have Puerto Rico who bring in 120 of their players. You have Dominican Republic that bring in 140 of their players. So we have to compete against those all the time. But the results are great. We're excellent, as like Eric said. But to answer
Okay,
your question
let's
on the
go to the
persons
next
who
I would
play,
question.
also
Eric,
add to I
you
would
may want
also
to
add
take
to
this
Ronnie's.
one. How come only Barbados and Jamaica represented the region? Any reason why we didn't see like Antigua, Guyana, and those countries at these championships?
well, Mark, I believe again that's part of my role as second vice president and the representative for the English speaking Caribbean. It's my role to bring those persons on board because the Spanish League play a slightly different domino. Those countries are not too au fait. And the reason, well, my job really is to get those people to come together, the English speaking Caribbean, to make a better showing at these championships. And that's in the pipeline for sure.
Okay, so let's go to the next question. Weren't we the best in the world at some stage? That's a historical question. Were we ever world champions?
Well, with the new with the regional World Championships of Domino Federation, that's regional. That's usually the Caribbean islands. Barbados have been quite dominant for a lot of years with that championship. However, this international championship here, the 16 different countries, we have yet to make our mark in this. I've attended this for the last 8 or 9 years, but this is the first time we had 36 players and that we did so well. We're hoping next year in Puerto Rico, obviously, from the learning experience, we will do a lot better.
Okay, and oh, definitely this one is for you, Eric. I didn't know
Yeah.
Eric Lewis had other talents.
Yeah, I can handle myself around the dominoes table. You know, I do fairly well in three hand. That's usually my forte. I don't really play a lot of forehand in Barbados, but I play a lot of three hand, and that is my style. I have, grown to love this style, this 200-point style. And so, to what Ronnie said earlier, though, the contingent that left Barbados had some national players on that team and some former national players. So the team, and then we had some new players. The Bajan trainings, which I led, I must commend the players there. Sasha Mapp, Smithy, Anthony Smith, and Vilma Bradshaw. They played extremely well to make sure that we were able to break into the top 20. But I love dominoes. Right now, I am in a domino nest. I'm here at Cat's Bar. There's a tournament playing right now, and I'm right here in the midst of it, getting ready to go and see if we could, make a mark.
All right. And next one, Inspector Innes, will you use your new world position to help unite Barbados Dominoes?
Well, of course. But that's one of my number one responsibilities. We want to showcase to the rest of the world that Barbados, as small as we are a powerhouse in dominoes. We've been all over the world playing dominoes and we have made incredible performances. It's just a matter of us believing in ourselves and playing the different style of dominoes and coming forward and showcasing to the world that we are a force to reckon with. For sure, us along with the Domino Association, we're looking to promote dominoes to the highest level. We still believe it is the most popular sport and definitely we be unified and come as a really great force team to be reckoned with going forward.
Okay, and look, Grace, we have one more question. Can a Barbados bid for the 2025 World Championships? Or can a team bid for the championship, or does it have to be the National Association?
Now, when we are once you're a country that's part of FOMUNDO, which we are, persons representing FOMUNDO, which I do, we have the right to bid. And the bidding has been done formally. We've been given the go ahead by the Ministry of Sport and, of course, the Sports Council to go ahead. And that those formal things were done and discussed previously. And we went ahead and made the bid. And as I said, there, so we've been successful in getting that. We go ahead for the bid in 2025 to host five, six, 700 athletes and dominoes right here in Barbados for the competition. So of course we can.
Brilliant. Well, I'd like to thank Rodney Ennis and Eric Lewis for being on Final Score. I know both of you have to get back there and play some dominoes, so I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to having you back occasionally to discuss the state of dominoes. So good luck with your tournament.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for having us.
Brilliant. After the break, ocean adventurer Phil Alves joins the score to talk about his next expedition. We'll be right back. We're back to final score as we say goodnight to Phil Alves, the ocean adventurer, and welcome back home, Phil. Glad to see you're still good and healthy. Let's start with your overall experience in the Arctic recently.
Yeah, good night, Mark. Good night to all the viewers there. Yes, well, it was 3.5 years in the making, all the planning, and finally executing off the pond inlet where we started the Northwest Passage Ocean Row. Um, the main things that I had to deal with out there was the extreme cold conditions, um, especially when the wind started to blow um, all up in 30 and 40 miles an hour. So that was one of the things that you had to really get accustomed to. Um, in the in the stages, everything was going well. We had some good weather and stuff in the beginning, the first like 20 days or so. But then after we start to get closer to, we were over like 1,000 miles in the bag when things start to change and the weather start to really get very uncomfortable, and you know, extreme ice and snow and hail and the sea conditions, especially when we broke one of the units that we call it. You see the blue thing there in the photo. We broke one of those, and those like stabilizers to help the boat to track in the water when we're on the big waves. And we struck a sandbar and broke one of them. So then the boat became a little bit unstable, and we had to really fight hard to maintain, especially in the seas, because the weather out there, the wind and stuff, when it starts to blow, it blows for days, and we were waiting until it blew in our direction. Sometimes we had to go into some bays by islands and stuff, Fort Ross and those other areas, just to escape the extreme wind conditions. So in the end, after pretty much 1,000 miles in the bag, we had to come to a conclusion because we had some big 30 foot, 35 feet, 40 feet waves, and at one point the boat would not handle it. wasn't going in the direction that we really wanted to go. although we deploy all the other amenities like the underwater parachutes and stuff to keep the boat stable. There's plenty times that we came, had to make the sign of the cross because I thought we were going to meet our milk points there when the boat started to roll, and we nearly turned over on numerous occasions. So it was a big challenge. It was a big challenge. We wanted to get to Nuktak, which is the finish line, but that kind of eluded us. So we had to pull into Cambridge Bay. Actually, we went past Cambridge Bay by 30 miles, and we had to shelter by island, Alexandria Island, and just so that we can make provision. We stayed there for 4 days in the shelter of the land, and then the Canadian Coast Guard there called us on the radio, and then they sent a vessel to come and take a look and check. That Coast Guard boat was Sir Wilfred Laurier. It's the icebreaker Coast Guard with helicopters and everything. And they came and they checked us, and they checked all of our vitals and everything to make sure that the team, everybody on board was okay. And we had the morning before they came, we had just made we had a team meeting, and we discussed going forward. And we decided, to push ourselves beyond that because it could have been a 10% success rate if we had gone forward. We would have no other places, maybe after 300 more miles, that we would have no place to shelter and stuff. So the idea was to try and put back, because this was always part of our planning, that if we don't make it in 1 year, we go and finish the remaining. Right now, we have 700 miles to get to where we wanted to get to. Right. But in all, we are there. We're waiting for the adjudicators from the Guinness Book of Records, because it's the first time anyone have ever rowed a boat in that area as the first 8 persons team, including 1 female, the youngest person, 25 years old, and the first Caribbean person, national, which is myself, and the oldest person. I was the oldest guy on the boat at 60.
Phil, have you all spoken? And what are the plans for resuming? Because as you said, you want to resume to make the finish line. What are the plans for resuming?
Yeah, well, currently they're looking at it. We have to do some repairs to the boat, which is up in the Arctic at this time. It's in Cambridge Bay. It's stored at one of the Inuits there, gave us permission, and the mayor of the town, so that we could leave the boat there. We had to strip the boat out, take off all the electronics and everything, and put them indoors because temperatures up there get to like minus 55. And when we were out there, it was minus 30. And so that's why we made the decision to pack up. We had to go back the 30 miles for safe haven and leave the boat that Yellowknife, because going forward, if we had to be rescued, it would have been kind of impossible for people to reach us there on the next leg. So the next leg was really serious because it had to do a lot of maneuvering and a lot of shallows, and some of the areas have not been mapped because, as I said, this area that going forward to Nuktak, that area, they never really mapped the area, so they don't know what the area is like.
So you don't have a date then? You don't have a date for resuming?
Summer next year, depends on the weather. So we're looking at July.
And when will you resume preparing for that?
Well, as I'm thinking, my main thing is now, I know, it was hard to get to the start line with sponsorship. And I made it. As I said, we have over 1,000 miles under our belt already. It's just 700 miles now to finish to the last part. But there's some logistics that have to be put in place with the heating system and also the controls of the boat. Because, as I said, 12 hours on a boat going broadside in big waves is not very comfortable. And we need to rectify some stuff on the boat before. So all of that being said is depending on how we get these things in place so that we could resume.
Your sponsors are still on board with you?
No, well, the sponsors, I would say the Barbados sponsors, yes. This hopefully so far. About the other sponsors, not as yet. Some of them are still being negotiated with. But it's very expensive to go in that part of the world. A ticket one way could run you all up in like 1,500 Canadian dollars just to fly for 2.5 hours on a plane, and then accommodation 300 Canadian dollars per night. So if you have any holdbacks and stuff, I got caught there for 3 weeks, and that bill was very big there and for the start. So it's a big cost to go up there, and then the clothing. I bought some local clothing from the Inuits, which is you call the Eskimos. That was handmade from seal skin and Arctic fox. And without that, I will not be here speaking to you now, because after coming back here, I ended up with frost nip, which is on my fingertips and stuff. I had no feeling in my toes and my ears. Now I'm pretty much back 99%. But you need to have the clothing that we purchased was not good enough for some areas because the extremities. That's why we had to buy local made stuff up there, and it could run you a pair of gloves like 200 Canadian dollars. Unless if you go to a store, those same gloves sell for like $1,000. But we got it from the lady that makes the clothing to sell. One of the local, they call it the elders that make the clothes for the Eskimo people.
I'm glad things worked out. Unfortunately, our time is running out, so I'd like to thank you. Of course, I expect to continue hearing from you as you have some unfinished business. So, of course, later on, let's get this conversation going again. But thank you very much. I'll be back in a moment to wrap up Final Score.
Thank you, Mark.
Here's what's coming up in sports this weekend. The Pan Am Games conclude this weekend in Santiago. CBC's Damien Best will have reports during Sports Night. The ODI World Cup continues in a few hours' time with Pakistan versus New Zealand at 1 a.m., then Australia versus England at 4:30 a.m., both live on MCTV's ESPN channels. The Super 50 Cup has 3 games this weekend. The Barbados Pride will be taking on the Trinidad Red Force at 1 p.m. on Sunday, live on MCTV's ESPN. And this weekend has the final 2 days of the BCA's Elite 6 Series. That's our program for this week. It's good night till next Friday. And of course, remember, let's be careful out there.